venue. But we've got couples that come to Love Always that want our specific design, and then there's not as much cohesiveness between the floral designs. So that's just something that I'd love input from the audience on. Christy has a great partnership with the Pines in Fargo. Love Always Floral is the preferred florist at the Pines. And so there's some really big weddings, big, beautiful weddings that they get to do out there, which works great. So I'm sure we'll come up with more challenges during Q&A, but I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. So we'll open it up to Q&A, and we'll kind of chat through everything else that we do.
Let's give it up for Janelle. Sit among the petals.
Yes, we shall.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So, Johnny's got the mug.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We can skip this slide. If we need to talk about it, we'll talk about it. Somebody ask about that later on.
All right, so Johnny's running around with the mug. Probably something I should have done in the introduction. I guess you were just anxious to get up here and talk, but I need to gush a little bit about Janelle. I've known Janelle for quite a long time, and I think most of you know Janelle. But just the role that she's played, certainly with 1 Million Cups. She kind of carried the 1 Million Cups torch for, better part of a couple of years. And as a committee member that does this with a lot of other people, I have a lot of respect for the amount of effort that took, and thank you for carrying this organization as long as you did, and also your role with Start Bismarck back in the day. Anybody remember Startup Drinks? Really, really cool event. I miss Startup Drinks like crazy. So if you need a side hustle later, a side hustle, I don't know, but
well, when I get a studio, when I get out of my house and get a studio, we'll have drink. You're all invited.
All right. Anyway, I just had to do that. So I think maybe along those lines, Janelle, you were working at Co-Schedule, very involved in a lot of entrepreneurial sort of things, like Start Bismarck and certainly 1 Million Cups. Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur? Is this something you knew you were going to do? Or did some of those activities help maybe bolster that a little bit?
For sure. Yep. I have never seen myself as a florist, but I had always identified as wanting to do something with small business. I had just been surrounded by so many creative people for so long. Post-graduation from the University of Mary, I just had gotten thrown into the startup world in Bismarck, had worked under Justin and Garrett at Co-Schedule, and had just been surrounded by so many incredibly talented coworkers that were side hustling with everything under the sun. So it was just really inspiring to be surrounded by people like Jordan, who was on stage earlier this year, by Ashton, Jeremiah. There's just so many people that do really, really cool stuff. So it had always been inspiring to me. I didn't know that florals would be my medium, but I did know at some point I would graduate from Co-Schedule and I would do something that I owned and that I get to create and direct on my own. So, yeah.
Cool. Keenan.
Hey, Jaden, Adam. All right, there we go. So you talked about being excited for having the data of what you did, what you were doing last year, and obviously COVID, everything plays a role in the weddings and things. But have you had a chance, or have you looked at what Christy did in Fargo on even year one when she was started in her home studio as some sort of baseline to see how things are going? At all too?
Yeah. The Bismarck market's a bit slower and we anticipated that it would not be at the volume that Fargo has. Christy launched in January, so I think she announced in December and launched in January during a non-COVID year. So she was able to capture brides her first year, which was 2016. I think she did about 40 weddings her first year, whereas Bismarck did 12 last year. And it's not even been a full season for me, like I said, but we're on track to be at least 40 this year. So I think our year 2 will at least match and hopefully surpass Christie's year 1. So, I mean, maybe that's a sign that we're about a year and a half behind, maybe 2 years behind where Fargo's at, but I'm super excited to see where that goes. So I don't expect the same volume. I don't expect the same price tag on weddings. A lot of the venues and a lot of the clientele just aren't the same. Fargo's closer to Minneapolis. That style kind of transcends for weddings. I think there's a lot of couples that live in the Fargo area that have disposable income for larger weddings. It's more of a show. So there's fewer younger couples that identify with our style in Bismarck, but we're getting there. I had the best 12 weddings last year. I'm gonna always remember their names and their style and what they wore and what they wanted in their bouquet. Those 12 were great, and we've got some really, really fun ones in Bismarck and Dickinson and Lake Minnegoshi on the books for this year. So, yep.
Mentioned this a little bit in your challenges, but I think the depth of it really hits home for me anyway, is when you wake up in the morning and you think you've got 6 orders and you have 16, but you have a product that you can only get the raw materials 2 days a week. So there's a question in here, I promise. But on one side, I'm thinking of that 80-20 curve you had. And it makes total sense why you want to get to the 80% events, because they're totally predictable, right? You know what flowers you need, you know the design, you know the volume and everything. The 20%, when you get there, that's completely unpredictable. How do you manage your ordering, also knowing you've got a perishable product, and not even having a full year's worth of data? Do you just throw darts, or how are you doing? Like, what is your scrap rate? And I was so interested in this.
I should calculate my scrap rate. It's a really good number to know. Scrap would just be what you see on the floor, like a product that's not getting used. I would say refrigeration has been a huge issue. Keeping your flowers cool is going to prolong their life. So you're right, when I get my product, it's already been cut from its stem. It's dying. When it gets to me, I rearrange it and give it out the door. But figuring out my florals, wax flower lasts great out of refrigeration. If I change the buckets of water every couple days, it stays great. So that doesn't need to take up fridge space. Whereas my more delicate blooms, anemones, ranunculus, lisianthus, needs to stay in water and in a cooler for any time that it's not being arranged with. So figuring out how to maximize my home studio space, my refrigeration. I have 3 Facebook Marketplace fridge finds in our basement right now. Can't wait to have a cooler someday. Christy's got a walk-in cooler in Fargo, and I just am so envious of her ability to stack buckets and buckets of flowers. So trial and error, lots of error, yeah.
It sounds like year 2 is going to be a substantial growth for you. What are your plans for staffing for that, as well as physical space?
So we are going to try to run as lean as we can for as long as we can. We're going to push through this wedding season in our home. Jaden hasn't heard this yet, but I'm planning to take over. I need to take over the area of the basement where he's currently mining crypto. So that's going to need to get moved upstairs or somewhere else this year. So we're going to push through, and I need to not be envious of anybody else's space this year, because we're going to get through it this year in our home. But we are going to put a call out for hiring. I'm glad you asked. Watch if you follow us on Instagram, or if you know anybody that would love to work with florals, we are going to put a hiring call out in March for summer help. So I'm thinking Bismarck will hire at least 1 to 2 full-timers throughout the week to help me with those dailies, and to help me process and do we call it floral support throughout the week. And then maybe 1 or 2 weekend warriors that are on site helping with installs, those arches that you saw, the hanging pieces, sort of everything that happens the day of the wedding. So we'll call those weekend warriors and hopefully get 1 or 2 or 3 of those, just that are on call and planned in advance. Janya said it, you hit the nail on the head. Weddings are booked in advance, they're planned in advance, they're ordered in advance. There's very few edits that need to be made once you have those client meetings. So those are the most predictable source of income and also florals. So, yep.
Is this one of those situations where Jaden might get some flowers now because you announced publicly that his crypto mining area is going to get moved?
Yeah.
So you got that.
Yep.
Joel.
Hey, Janelle.
Hey.
So my question is, you've got all these things that you do flowers for, and that's predictable, and you know that people want to give flowers for Valentine's Day. What's a really unique use of flowers that you've seen, maybe in your first year, or maybe what the Fargo store has done, but just something that was out of the ordinary for what people would expect your product to be used for?
That's a good question. One thing Christy and I would really love to introduce the idea of is that floral design is art, and there are so many avenues with floral design that you can get creative with. Fargo has an incredible relationship with West Acres. You can go back to that slide that was up there that I said we could pass by. I think it was either one before or one after. There it is. So Christie's got a great contract with, I think it's the Schlossman family, don't quote me on that, but they are the owners of West Acres in Fargo. They have quite a few fine artists in their family, and so they've really done an incredible job supporting artists in Fargo Moorhead to decorate or beautify West Acres Mall. So Christie's got a quarterly contract with West Acres. She's had it for years. They do incredible work, big scale installations with dried materials, and just design that's floral related, but maybe not necessarily something that you would think of when you think of flowers. So I would just love to be introduced to people in Bismarck that have the purchasing power. Most often it's people in marketing that are in charge of events for their companies. Anybody that's like an office manager at a company that's needing a piece of art, like there's tons of opportunities with dried materials and installations. If you go to Instagram or Facebook, you can see all of our work. But there's just a ton of possibility for stuff like that. Does that answer your question, Joel? It's not a table arrangement that you bring home for Valentine's Day or wedding florals. There's so many other avenues for creativity with floral design because it's such a unique product that people don't usually think of art. So, yeah.
Hi, Janelle.
Hi.
Hello. Question. Hello. Check, check. Okay, there we go. Hi. I first want to say, good job.
Thanks.
We are incredibly proud of you. Both Chelsea and I and the whole team at Co-Schedule are your biggest fans. You've got a lot of biggest fans, but I'm sure we're up there with the rest of them and are just smitten with your success and how you've taken this so far in just the first year. So you've got a lot of people in this community who are rooting for your success and just keep on crushing it. That's the first thing. The second thing is when you start a business, there is an incredible amount of doubt and you overcome it and you start anyway, but those doubts linger. And they are those things in your head that you're just not sure will work out, or they're the things telling you why it'll fail. Where are you at with those today? Which ones did you have that are completely unfounded now that you've got a year under your belt, that if you could, go back and know what you know now, were just irrelevant, unsubstantiated doubt that you would like to, be able to tell yourself a year ago not to worry about?
I'm in a really unique position because I didn't start from scratch. I had Christie's guidance. I had a business partner that had 5 years under her belt, and all of those nuggets of information on how material comes in, what the mechanics should look like, what day of feels like, how much time you should estimate for certain designs, how to hire, how to process, how to do all of these things. Christy had been there before, and she was an open book. She's got a vested interest in helping Bismarck succeed. So I feel like I cheated by starting a floral business here, but I manage everything day to day. So all of those errors, all of those mistakes are on me at the end of the day in Bismarck, and there's a ton of information and a ton of challenges that I have to overcome on my own and just learn for myself. But I'm grateful that Christy had modeled the couple lanes that we stay in. We stay weddings and events, that's our bread and butter, and daily deliveries. Daily deliveries, even though it's a fraction of our total income throughout the year, that keeps us relevant throughout the year. We've got Valentine's Day, we've got Mother's Day, we've got a lot of the celebrations that you saw. We'll put it back, maybe hopefully guys, at the end after the music plays. Just the card messages that come in on the celebrations that we get to be a part of in Bismarck. It keeps us relevant in the community. If I could tell myself something last year, just don't worry so much. I don't know how to say it. Ben asked me a similar question. To see how your style as a designer will continue to grow and how Christie's has changed since year one. And it's really fun. I'm really excited to have a team and to watch that through them as well. So.
Which is about, so as you think about growing, kind of hinted, I know you're growing. Right now you're having to wear pretty much all the hats, except for delivery hats. The goddess of delivery, right? But as you see the business growing, which of those hats do you not want to give up? Like, you obviously enjoy the designing, but as the company grows, so if you're watching Christy and the role she plays in her company, and you mentioned their office manager, which pieces would you want to give away, and where do you want to stay the most active as you grow?
I think I'll model Christy's growth in Fargo. She stepped away from design first. She hired a floral designer to come in and to help her with those weddings and to help her with those dailies. And I think that's naturally the direction that I'll lean as well. I just, from my background, co-scheduled with Start Bismarck with 1MC, running a social enterprise, sort of managing things for so long, I think I do that really well, and I really love that piece of it. So I think it'll be really easy for me to hand over design. I'll teach the basics, and we'll stay in line with our style, but to me, the continual challenges are going to be in ordering, figuring out wholesale accounts, client relations, and just stuff like this, I think is what I'll keep in my wheelhouse and continue to do. So the stuff that an employee should never be expected to do for your business, the finances, the marketing, and stuff like that. We do hire out a bunch of our marketing, so yeah. Oh, yes. She's going to want to raise.
As a primary delivery person here, I have had the privilege of seeing just beautiful creations go out. It has just been fun from week to week to see what goes out. Someone asked about some of the more creative things, and there's three things that come to mind that you can tell them about. Three things that I thought were really cool this year. One was a flower bar that was part of a little girl's party, and one was some table runners that you created with spray painted baby's breath for a baby shower, and one was a wedding tent that we loaded with greenery all the way across the top of a wedding tent. Maybe you can just explain those three things a little bit more.
Wedding planning and event planning with Pinterest is completely different now than it was 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. These people just find something that they love and then ask a florist to come in and help create that vision. So we were 20 feet up in the air on a ladder under a high top tent for a wedding in August with we basically like hula hooped the center pole and then used fishing line to come down to each of the points on the ground underneath the tent. And then we strung, Kristen was up there, my sister-in-law, just wrapping Jackson vine, smilax greenery all the way down to just completely cover the inside of that white high-top tent for the wedding reception, which turned out to be really beautiful, but was a very difficult process, and I had never done that before, and I know I would do everything differently, if we get hired to do that again, which we have been hired to do that again, based on the photos and the videos that we were able to take from that. So, yeah. And then just baby's breath, painted baby's breath, that's another thing. It's a live product that sometimes we need to spray paint to achieve a certain color tone. Such fun ideas like that. Flower bars, that's really cool. It's sort of just a bucket of blooms with all the right ingredients, and then have like table arranging, like just purchase it for a birthday party or a baby shower and then do table arranging with your group of girls or guys that are there. So the possibilities are endless. So if you've got an idea, let's chat.
I think it was an art you did for a Make Well event too.
Yep.
I mean, it's almost like mechanical engineering going on.
It is.
to make some of this, which kind of piqued my interest, but
Yep.
it was really amazing kind of combination of that structure piece,
Yep.
but then also the artistic piece. It's
Yeah.
interesting challenges that you face.
Yep.
I wanted to ask a question. The events being your bread and butter, I totally could get that because you can plan for them, you can order for them. How do you market that? Are you getting mainly word of mouth? People see that you did so and so's wedding, so you get a phone call, and then also it was kind of interesting your comment about the mall in Fargo. Are there opportunities like that in Bismarck, corporate accounts, things like that could either be events or just something that's always available in their lobby or something along those lines? Mm-hmm. How do you market that?
Yeah, for sure. If we could go back to the slide that has the 80-20% split, you'll see some of our wedding work. Marketing has just totally been word of mouth and Instagram. If you do one wedding, it's already cascading for me in Bismarck. I did 12 weddings last year. I think I've got at least 6 weddings booked of bridesmaids that held our bouquets from weddings last year. So it just kind of cascades word of mouth and then on Instagram. So our Instagram grid is just our complete body of work. So I don't know how many discovery calls I'm sitting in, they'll zoom in on a bouquet that Fargo did or that we just posted. So really have not spent any money on proactive marketing. We do have a social media manager. Her name is Maria. She's great. I'm not going to tell you where she works or what her company name is because we don't want her to be stolen away from us because she does such a great job, but she does Instagram stories for us and grid posts and sort of manages our social media so that we're relevant on the platform that brings in the most leads. So that's been our marketing strategy. Everything's on our website. There's a inquiry form that splits between Bismarck and Fargo. So I get all the Bismarck leads, and then Christy and her team get all the Fargo leads. So, and every single time I always ask, how did you hear about us? It's either a local wedding planner that knows about our work and has been on other wedding install setups with us, or Instagram. So.
Those are the best. Word of mouth is the best anyway.
Yeah, yep.
It's a much easier sell. Yes.
I have another question. Are we all surprised? No.
If you had a question, you could take the mic from her. So just saying
Pull
that.
it out of my hands, seriously. No, I have a fetish. She knows I'm a total groupie because when I was in college, my job was I worked at a flower shop. So it's like, as soon as Janelle said she was doing this, I'm like, I am your loyal fan. So here's a challenge that you didn't bring up, but I happen to know that you have it because I'm sometimes the beneficiary. All these flower trimmings, you are like a compost generating fiend, right? And you generate the most beautiful and good smelling compost. So what have you been doing with it lately, selfishly? Because sometimes in the summer, I'm on the receiving end because we have a garden.
Yep.
And I've gotten boxes of compost from Janelle, and I think she's afraid to give it to me now because she knows that I pick through it to find anything that's good enough for me, and I stick it in a vase.
Yeah.
And then the rest compost. So.
Yeah. Evan's too cheap to buy her flowers, so she has
Yeah.
to take through.
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, that was good. What do you do with all this stuff?
Good question. I'm embarrassed to say a lot of it does go into the trash right now. I just, as a one-woman show, don't have enough time to sweep the floor scraps, separate it from the cardboard and the plastic, and give it away to people or sell it to people. I know in bigger metro areas, florists that are specifically focused on sustainability and low waste will box up their compost and either give it away or sell buckets of compost for gardeners. So a lot of my scraps end up in your garden, Shania. I wish it wasn't so far south, otherwise you'd get more of it. But that's something I'd consider, but just right now don't have the time to dedicate to separating floor scraps. So.
No, I selfishly put it out there because I thought if anybody in the audience was thinking, oh, that would be kind of cool, and I could spend a little time
If you wanna-
or whatever. And then I might just also work on a pickup schedule for us as well.
Sounds good. If anybody wants to come sweep my floors, you're welcome to it. So.
Your garden will never smell as good.
Yeah. I realized you had a second part of your question based on the West Acres install relationship. If there are people in Bismarck that need installations in their office or client gifts, or just introduce me and let's chat about something that's unique and different. So those are kind of the relationships that I'm looking for. Like I said, it's probably mostly people in marketing or the event planning, marketing department or event planning business operations of a company that has the purchasing power and can kind of slide Love Always in there as an option for a holiday event or something cool and unique. So yeah.
And we've
All
come
right.
to that time.
We've
Do I get
come
to
to
ask
that
this one
time.
too, or have I hit my question quota?
Is this your last question?
I promise, yes.
Shania,
Thank
please ask
you,
our last
Evan,
question.
and be sure to get an arrangement from Janelle for that little comment. Okay. So, my dear, you know the last question. What can we do to best help you succeed?
I knew this was coming. Let's get Valentine's Day orders in early. Help your florist. Don't wait until the last minute. If you need some, I'm not sold out yet, but I will be probably by Thursday, by tomorrow or Friday.
Okay.
Support your local independent florist. Grocery stores don't make money on their floral designs. They put them out there so that you grab them and think about it's just an add-on purchase at the grocery store. Go to a florist like Roberts or Crabapple or Love Always. Support the people that are intentional with their design and intentional with their sourcing, and ask them to make customizations or give them the creative freedom to make a design that they love, and that you'll see just a variety of blooms in your house that are a lot better than what you find at Hornbacher's or Dan's or Cashwise. So that's my ask, is just to remember that floral design is an art. Introduce me to anybody you think might have some purchasing power for some of those bigger corporate events, and come chat with me afterwards if you have any other questions that you didn't want to ask over the mic.
Cool. All right, let's hear it for Janelle. All right, next week we've got a job placement panel, and on the 23rd we've got Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. You're going to want to be here for that. And then we've got the RAMA team on March 2nd. So lots of things. The schedule is we're staying ahead of it, so that's always good. If you or somebody that you know would like to get up here on stage and tell your story, simply go to 1millioncups.com/bizman, and it's a super easy process. Application comes to us, we'll talk to you, work with you, make it easy for you. It wasn't too bad, was it?
No.
Okay. And with that, have a terrific week. Thank you.